Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's presentation. We are going to get started right now. We are very excited to talk about today's topic. The webinar you're joining is Selecting the Best iPaaS for Dynamic Cloud Integration. First, I'd like to introduce our primary speaker for today. We're very lucky to have Henri Perret with us today. Henri is a principal analyst at Forrester, and his primary focus is helping enterprise architecture professionals select the right tools and processes to increase their business agility. He is the primary analyst at Forrester who covers data integration technologies and the emerging integration platform as a service, or iPaaS, space. He recently wrote a wave report evaluating the major iPaaS products on the market. Scribe has one of those products as well. And so these are a very fast-growing segment of the data integration market, and Henri will be discussing his view on the market and how to evaluate various iPaaS products and some of what he did as part of his wave report. I am John Joseph. I'm the VP of Marketing at Scribe Software, and I will be discussing some of the views that Scribe has as a provider of iPaaS products in the market. So Henri will take us through most of the agenda, talking about the iPaaS market, the products, how to evaluate iPaaS products. I will come back at the end, and I will review a couple of key considerations that we think you should take into account when you're looking at cloud integration solutions. So with that, I would like to hand things over to Henri. And Henri, are you live? If so, the ball is now in your hands.
Thank you, John, and good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for the one joining from the East Coast. And for the one joining like me from Europe, good evening. So I am principal analyst at Forrester covering the integration space. I'm bringing 15 years of analysis on that space. And even if I left that space for 5 years now, I'm very happy to coming back to that subject. Why? Because everything is changing. And it's not just because of the cloud. It's just because the integration is becoming more complex and is facing new challenges. So the subject today will be to review with you the integration challenges, see some of the trends and how vendors are answering those challenges, and providing you also some recommendations at the end of that presentation. Again, do not hesitate to chat with us and to send your questions. We will be very happy to answer those questions at the end of that session. Let's start with the integration challenges. We must recognize that the environment of the integration is completely changing. Previously, the companies were the center of their linear value chain. They were dealing with suppliers and delivering products to their customers through some of the retailers. So that was completely linear. We are hearing a lot with the digital transformation that the companies are changing to put the customer at the center of their ecosystem. It's completely false, and we should be very careful to better understand what does that mean, that digital transformation. Why it's completely false? Because they see the customer at the center of their own ecosystem. In reality, customers are assembling their own ecosystem, and the difficulty for companies is to join those ecosystems which are continuously changing. Why they are continuously changing? Because the customers are continuously looking for more value from the applications, the mobile, the channels that they are using to get what they care about. And the difficulty for companies is to continuously adjust and join different ecosystems that will provide the wide service and the wide value to customers. And unfortunately, companies should care about what customers care about. So that's in that dynamic ecosystems that companies should play. And And again, because there are more and more competition within the customer's ecosystem, that the companies should join dynamic ecosystem for more value for customers. As a consequence, the architecture that we put in place were previously in the linear value chain, typically an ERP. And sometimes because the ERP was not enough, we developed and added some design capabilities, some operational capabilities, some CRM capabilities. And to make that assembly, we put in place service-oriented architecture instrumented with EAI, Enterprise Architecture, Enterprise Application Integration, ESB, Enterprise Service Bus, some of the connectors, some of the data integration. As we are now entering into that dynamic ecosystem, the difficulty for companies is to recognize that we have different systems of. When I say system of, we know very well for a long time ERPs as system of records. But those system of records are now splitting to get more dynamic system of engagement. Every application, marketing, CRM, help desk, support, every engaging application which is connecting to customers, to employees, to partners, are the system of engagements. But that's not the end of the split from the system of records. We should recognize that probably we will get also system of operation or system of automation and system of design. What we mean by system of operation, that's the operational system that we have put in place within those companies, or we are putting it newly in place within those companies to deal with all the sensors, all the Internet of Things, and all the infrastructure to collect that information to change the engagement or to provide more operational efficiency for our operations. Some examples of those system of operations, obviously within telcos, we call that OT, operational technology or operational telecom. And there was 10 years ago, while the telecom were facing that digital transformation, there was some merger between the IT and OT. That's exactly the type of issues that we will face with the implementation and separation of system of automation from the system of records. Finally, for system of design, that's mainly for car manufacturers, for plane manufacturers, all manufacturers which are building products, they need to put in place a system of design which will be separate from the system of engagement. So you see that all of those systems are getting a very different life cycle. The life cycle for system of engagement, is more dependent on the type of relationship that you will put in place with your partners, your customers, your employees. While the system of automation will depend a lot on the deployment, but also the change of technologies for sensors. Just an example about that, Tesla and the infrastructure that Tesla put in place with all the sensors and microprocessors within their car is a very good example of that infrastructure, which is the basis of the system of automation. Obviously, they have also an asset management, they have maintenance capabilities, they are getting also some predictive analytics specific for the system of automation to operate and upgrade also their cars. This is exactly the type of life cycle. And again, the life cycle depends on the life cycle of each of their products, but also the upgrade of the software and the embedded software that they are downloading or uploading within their cars. In the middle of those different systems, we are getting a new type of system, which is system of insight. That's based on a data lake and all the big data technologies and all the advanced analytics to generate insights. It's not just storing the data and accessing that data, but really getting out of all that information what is really meaningful for engagement and engaging differently to generate some next best action, for example, Also useful for the operations or the automation. For the industries which are getting a system of design, that's also insights which help also to design differently, to improve, for example, the maintenance and that sort of information or some sort of insight. So system of insight are a little bit different because they are getting to actions, and that's the main difference. So now let's come back a little bit now that I draw the landscape. Let's come back to the integration aspect. So what we are seeing is that in the past, when we were integrating system of records, mainly the main way to do that was the batch, meaning extracting a file, transporting that file, and injecting that file in a system of records. And I know a lot of our customers at Forrester are still doing that, and they are still doing and developing those interfaces more or less manually. That was okay because the life cycle, again, of the system of records was 2 or 3 years, or sometimes 5 years or 10 years, changing from one release to a new version. But now that we need to integrate with system of engagement, in that case, the main objective of the system of engagement is to get a time to market and to improve the Net Promoter Score, to improve the satisfaction of customers or employees. What does that mean? That means that we need still to integrate system of engagement to system of records, but at the right pace, which is not anymore the pace of system of records, but more the pace of system of engagement. And we know that in some industry, the system of engagement are changing every week or every month. And obviously, the integration should evolve. It should change perhaps from batch to near real time. Should change the structure to include now a new attribute coming from system of records or coming from system of insight to deliver a new insight or a new best action for system of engagement. That's what we are calling dynamic integration. Again, that's really different from the batch mode or also from the enterprise service bus that we used to integrate the package application, which were mainly system of records at that time. That's exactly the type of solution that I published a wave about, that I called integration platform as a service for dynamic integration. So the goal is really to deliver DevOps capabilities, to deliver also more flexibility and more agility to really support that pace of delivery and that life cycle for system of engagement. For companies which are facing and starting now to exchange that data, but also to share all those data within system of insight, we have seen also the convergence of those integration solutions to bring application integration plus data integration. In that case, that helps to also populate system of insight storage with all data, event-based or batch mode, full system of insight. But what will come in the future, as we are developing and as we are separating system of automation from system of record, we will get additional integration capabilities or requirements. For example, connecting system of automation to system of records or connecting system of automation to system of engagement will require to get what I'm calling operational integration. And the operational integration will face some other objective that we, for example, what we call business case, or the way to justify that sort of integration will highly depend on how you will justify the system of automation business case. So typically, we are using CapEx versus OpEx. So perhaps the operational integration should provide additional capabilities to diminish your OpEx, but that will perhaps require also additional investments in that case. This is just to show that every of those systems is requiring different type of integration and different type of requirements for integration. So the interface are complexifying. The number of integration scenarios are increasing. Just to give you an idea, 10 years ago, Greg Hope and a co-author, I do not remember his name, unfortunately, but published a document, a very good book about integration patterns. And he said that we are moving from batch mode with file extract and import. That was the only one integration pattern, to 50 integration pattern. And those 50 integration patterns are mainly covering dynamic integration. And now we are adding probably 10, 20, 50, 100 perhaps additional integration patterns to deal with real time, to deal with end-to-end security, to deal with end-to-end non-repudiation, traceability, and many other subjects which would require additional requirements on integration. So our viewpoint at Forrester is really to split the market in two categories of products. One which are dealing more with solely the dynamic integration, and that's the iPaaS, Integration Platform as a Service, or the products which are now more a strategic investment for large enterprises, which are dealing and want to deal not only connecting the system of engagement to system of records, but trying to plan for a strategic investment for integration, which will include also the integration with system of insight, system of automation, and system of design. And that's a category of product that we are calling hybrid integration. It's more complex also, and getting also with more capabilities. At the same time that we are saying that, that's not because we are claiming that they are strategic investment for integration, but we think they will cover 100% of integration requirements. So despite the fact that we are explaining to customers that they should prepare a strategic integration strategy, in which they will choose the tactical product plus probably also a strategic investment for integration, they should be prepared also to get some additional features and capabilities to deal with some very special integration in the future. So that draws a little bit of the landscape, which is complexifying. And I summarize some of what I said previously with the next 3 slides. So system of engagement requires dynamic integration. That requires also that the integration itself should deal with continuous integration, continuous delivery. The same way that all development within that system of engagement requires CI/CD, but the DevOps and all the organization around agile development. That requires also to deal with cloud and on-premise, to deal with convergence from data plus application, and to also batch plus real time. What we think also is that particularly with mid-sized companies, because we are seeing in the dynamic integration some opening to mid-sized market. And in that case, the difficulty is to get the right skills and the right competencies internally, the same way that large enterprise develop a center of excellence. So we think that those products, iPaaS, Integration Platform as a Service, for dynamic integration, are not only focusing on user experience, but also providing a lot of templates, suggestions without any help, which helps tech-savvy business users able to develop very simple integration by themselves, but mainly dealing with the time-to-market requirements. And that will come through also managed services that those vendors or their partners can offer. So some of the typical requirements that we start to collect, again, the list is probably not finished, but for system of insight, some of the integration tooling should provide data quality capabilities with semantic or perhaps also with machine learning. That's one of the developments that we are hearing from vendors. We should extract also the data context, particularly useful for data scientists and data analysts, who should not just deal with the data, but know also where the data is coming from, what are the limitations of sensors, if a sensor is limited to collect the temperature between 5 to 20, and unfortunately the temperature of the environment is going over 20 degrees, but we should get that information as well, or provide that information to at the right time, at the time of usage of that data, to the data scientist. Otherwise, we extract false information or false interpretation of because out of the limit of the sensor capabilities. That's what I call data context. It's not just getting the data, but getting also all the metadata plus also all the information that I can get to provide and build that data context. Again, I don't want to enter into too much detail, but for system of design, for system of operation, we see also some additional requirements for integration. Again, we are just at the beginning of collecting all of those as we are separating those systems and as we are managing also the life cycle of those systems differently. And we will see those requirements for integration developing over the next decade. So what we see also in terms of challenges, as we are seeing some of our customers moving to make a strategy choice for integration between their different systems, is that they see also more volume, some real time. I talked about that. Some mobility also requirements, obviously a lot of heterogeneity for integrating Internet of Things. We see also some debate, and I think that debate does not help today, between microservice architecture and some purists of microservice architecture are pushing too much to say, if we are getting into microservice architecture, we do not need any more ESB. That's a false debate. At Forrester, we think that we need both, but we need to place the capabilities of the microservice architecture at the right place, the same way that we need to place some of the capabilities like scalability, serializing, non-repudiation at the right place also. And sometimes the best place is within an ESB. So that depends a lot on your architecture. And obviously, we think also that microservice architecture is not for everything. So just to let you know that those debates are not helping to get the good and the right architecture, combining all of those capabilities at the right place. So we still need to get some architects to get the right integration the right way. There is also another aspect, and as we see more and more companies getting into the cloud for their infrastructure or for their software as a service, we also think that if those providers, I'm talking about Google, Amazon, Microsoft, are becoming so monopolistic, and that will come, they will probably increase their price, and the price could increase a lot. You should know and understand that today, those cloud providers are making between 5 to 10% margin, operating margin, compared to software developers, which are doing between 20 to 45 for the most monopolistic like Oracle and Microsoft. So we should understand that in 2020, that will be the end of the hyper growth for cloud providers, and we will start to see some consolidation probably. And at that time, there is a big threat that the price will completely change. So we should be very careful about that. That's really something we are warning our customers. That will not happen if the competition continues to get some differentiators on the cloud providers. But we should be very careful about that. And finally, we should understand that the integration also requires still governance. We made a mistake during the SOA time because we tried to centralize too much the governance at the point that that was not agile and not supporting the agility and the agile project. So we still need governance, but we need a governance which is helping also to deliver system of engagement at the right time, at the right pace. So let's move on a little bit about how vendors are answering to all of those challenges that we are facing with integration. The trend are that all the providers that we have seen on the market providing iPaaS or hybrid integration are very mature, and I was very surprised to see so many very good products, very well architected, delivering a high volume of integration. So we can say that that's a market which is globally very mature. The other thing also that we are seeing on the market is the market is expanding. The market is growing because most of the mid-size, which in the past were doing still their integration using batch mode and file transfer and developing their interface by themselves, hard-coded, are now facing a problem with integrating system of engagement, as I was talking about previously. And they need now to get tooling to help to maintain continuously those interfaces. It's not sustainable to stay with a hard-coded development for interface while those interfaces are changing every week or every month. And that means also that we are seeing more and more partners and ISVs developing some pre-configured, pre-established or templates for those interfaces directly out of the box. So it's less costly rather than developing by ourselves. In that market, for mid-size, there are 4 levels which are making the market and which are helping the market also to remain competitive. So the first thing is to get a simplified pricing. The difficulty in the cloud is an iPaaS is in between infrastructure as a service and the software as a service. And we know that the pricing model for infrastructure is more based on consumption. What is the time spent on CPU, how many cores, what is the memory consumption, the bandwidth consumption, and all that sort of thing. That's typically the pricing for infrastructure as a service. At the software level, at the software as a service level, the pricing model is per seat or per developer or per user. In the case of iPaaS, which is in between, the difficulty is to get a simplified pricing, but at the same time, the pricing which will guarantee you the service level agreement. And the most flexible the pricing is for customers, and that should be the customers, the company's customers, choosing the right pricing which is the best for them. And one thing also that we are pushing is to ask to vendors to provide also all the information for letting customers choosing the right pricing for themselves. That's the best way. The other thing is also to provide and support more citizen integrators, those tech-savvy business users trying to do their own integration. But at the same time that we should get a very simple UI, we should also get some sort of governance. What type of interface those citizen integrators should be able to deploy, should be able to put in production by themselves, and without any control, without any testing, and all that sort of thing. So the more we are pushing on the citizen integrator, the more we should get also the right level of governance for deployment. There are some other also battles which are more partnering with ISVs, SI, but also providing as an OEM for the software vendors. It could be also by partnering strategically with some of the providers of system of engagement, of system of automation, and in the future also a system of design. And the final battle is to get more and more capabilities within those integration platform as a service. That's what I call all-in-one. That's providing B2B integration, IoT integration, system of engagement integration, perhaps in the future, system of operation integration, plus system of insight integration, all in one platform. The difficulty in that case is obviously to still remain simple enough to remain a citizen integrator environment, while at the same time dealing with more and more business integration scenarios. That's the difficulty and the paradox of those which are requiring or putting more and more capabilities in their platform. Are they still for citizen integrator? I'm not sure. So let's move on to some recommendations that we have got and collected through the wave that we published in the last quarter. As you can see, Scribe is very well positioned as a leader, but we think that even the strong performers and sometimes some of the good contenders can be useful also. But it highly depends on the way you want to deploy, who will provide you and support you in terms of services, integration. Is this full ISV? Is this full system integrators? I think that that's not just a question of capabilities, but also understanding that in which ecosystem, again, that ecosystem issue, that we should understand to really make the right choice, even for tactical choice. So to summarize a little bit what are the main criteria for iPaaS, for dynamic integration, obviously the citizen integrator capabilities. And again, that's not coming from just a simple UI, but that should be also everything which is helping to adapt the solution. So I talked a little bit about outsourced services, which should be provided by either the vendor or the partners, but it could be also all the small things like video training, marketplace for already prepared integration and sharing that integration with a community, or sharing that with partners, or getting that with a price, an associated price on the marketplace. And think also about the pricing flexibility, simplicity, but also the evolution of that pricing. All of those criteria should help you to get a better time to market for the integration project, which should not be a slowdown for your system of engagement projects. Oh, I missed one slide, the final recommendation. So you should remember that the integration complexity will continue to increase, but at the same time, choosing a tactical solution or a strategic solution should not bring you to think that you should put everything into one vendor, because the pricing which will increase in the future. We think at Forrester, but I know that's not, we should establish an integration strategy, even for a tactical choice, meaning trying to understand how the integration is evolving as we are separating those different systems with a very different life cycle, and trying to understand and continuously review that integration strategy will help to manage the evolution of the integration solution choice. So on that slide, that's the end of my part. Sorry. And now let's come back to John with your slide, John.
Thank you, Henry. I will take this in a little bit different direction. There's a lot of great information that Henri went through there. You know, obviously we're in a state of change when it comes to data integration and the amount of data integration that needs to take place and how you can accomplish the different tasks for the different systems that Henri was mentioning are and the different patterns that you mentioned, Henri, are really interesting and fascinating ways that the organizations need to consider when they're thinking about what they need to do to get to the data integration point that they want to achieve. We have a few things that we are seeing on a regular basis that we also think are important considerations when you're thinking about cloud integration in particular. I wanted to run through those now for a few minutes. So a couple of data points that I think are very relevant when we think specifically about cloud. And iPaaS today is being used and gaining some attention because of its capabilities and ease of use when it comes to cloud integration in particular. And so when you're thinking about cloud integration, these points are pretty relevant. One is that there are a number of studies recently that looked at organizations and the executives, CIOs, and IT managers, directors, about how satisfied they were with their cloud integration initiatives and capabilities. And it turns out that it's a big problem, and you might be experiencing this problem yourself. A lot of cloud applications that are sort of proliferating and don't necessarily come with out-of-the-box integration solutions. And so what's happening is that we're creating some islands of data. So most organizations are feeling that pain. At the moment, 61%, like I said, are feeling that their cloud integration initiatives are not at a satisfactory point. So the second part of that is that there's an interesting dynamic of that. It's not just that the applications are cloud-based, but also that they are highly customized or configured for the users. And that itself creates an integration challenge. So we are able to see, as people use our cloud platform, the kinds of integrations that people are doing. And what we have noticed is when we look at CRM implementations in particular, that 90% of those implementations have custom fields and objects that are part of that integration. So obviously dealing with that level of configurability of the application and the customization that's taking place at a mass scale is very critical for your integration platform. So you want to be able to quickly customize. Andre mentioned some templates. Templates really can only go so far for simple, regular kind of integration projects. They have to have the ability to be configured to the particular process or configuration of the application that the organization has. And the last point here, which is something I'll elaborate on in the next slide, is that integrations we should also consider as part of your integration choice, this life cycle, because 92%, and this is from an analyst firm, Arrival of Henry's, I apologize, Henry, for pulling this in there, but 92% of the total cost of ownership of integrations comes after the go-live date. It's for things like adaptations or changes, or, we had one of our partners, an SI, that deploys integrations, just kind of comment that, the integration's working, and then all of a sudden someone comes to them and says, the integration's broken, and it's really because someone changed the applications, and that filters down, flows down to the integration. The integration has to be a dynamic process of updating that integration continuously as the business changes and as those applications change. So I just want to show an example of that and what that means when we look at the integration lifecycle and how important it is. So you can think of an integration's life starting at the first deployment. Maybe it's a CRM or an ERP deployment, and you get the integration set up and everything's fine. But as a few examples, there are a number of hurdles that you'll encounter over its life cycle. So in the first month, sales might want to add a few new custom fields that weren't in the original specification. And this is just one instance when that might happen. This could happen continuously. So you have to adapt your integration for that. Later on down the road, you might encounter an issue, and the order data stopped flowing between the two systems. Again, it doesn't mean that the integration broke itself. It could mean that something changed on the application side, and it just needs to be addressed by the integration. But again, it's the need to go into an integration, change it, and adapt it pretty quickly to get things back up and running. Further down the road, you might have a need to bring in another data source. Maybe sales wants to enrich the CRM data with some industry data. Again, it's another change that has to be addressed in the integration. Again, further down the road, if you're a small organization, or maybe you're an SI group with a limited number of consultants that are working on integrations, you could have your key integration developer leave the company. And so what do you do then? You have to have somebody pick up the integrations, all the integrations that have been created up until that point. And so thinking about how quickly you can do that and how easily you can transition an integration to another person is another key success criteria for long-term success. Again, continuing on, you might have a new VP of marketing comes in, wants to change the marketing automation system, and then finally, even the application itself from its manufacturer changes the API that's available, and your integration may break as a result of that. So there's a lot of hurdles that you have to consider when you're thinking about an integration, and it doesn't just end with the implementation of that first integration on day one. It's something that you have to plan for, being able to adapt it and change it very quickly. And that's one of the advantages of iPaaS. So I think it's something to keep in mind as you're looking at what integration solution to use. And just a little bit on Scribe's platform. Our platform is called Scribe Online. And I just want to touch on some of the characteristics that make it unique, and then we'll review a couple of examples of case studies that I think will highlight some of these advantages. Very briefly, what we're especially known for is ease of use. So Henri mentioned the citizen integrators, which is, I translate to being anybody outside of a core IT developer. It could be a business analyst in a business unit. It could be a consultant at a systems integrator firm, for instance. But these are people that are not schooled necessarily in integration, but the burden of integration kind of falls on them. So having an ability to make that simpler and allow more people to build integrations and free up the bottleneck that you might encounter in IT is a key consideration, and something the Scribe platform is very strong in, because we have a visual design environment that's just as easy for analysts to create integrations than it is for developers. Time to market is another key characteristic of the Scribe Online platform. We have seen some studies that people get value very quickly out of the Scribe Online platform, going all the way from nothing to deployment in it could be a couple of weeks. I think on average it's 30 days to get value out of the Scribe platform, which is a pretty fast statement. And that comes from the fact that we have a very broad library of connectors, and also the visual tools that you use to create mappings between different systems is really easy, not only easy to use, but fast to create those custom integrations that you'd like to have. And also, we have some collaboration capabilities which are pretty unique. So if you're managing a project and you involve multiple contributors to that project to create the integration, you can have them come in and assist and accelerate the development even further. The next point is about tailored integrations. I mentioned this before about the need to customize an integration for your particular business process. So one of the advantages of the Scribe Online platform is that it handles custom objects and fields very easily. So all of those are exposed, and you can address your integration or tailor your integration to meet those customizations exactly. So you don't have to change your business process to match what you can do in the integration. You design the integration to match your business process. And finally, management functions. We talked about the lifecycle management issue. So the management functions are things like consoles and the fact that the interface itself is very, very much self-documenting, so it makes it easier to transition the platform or an integration that's already built to somebody who's not familiar with it, and they can pick it up and adapt it much more quickly than they can with other products. So just a couple of examples of some of the value that we have seen recently turned in by the Scribe Online platform with some of our customers. The first example here is a group that's within the Colorado Department of Human Services, and it's actually the Office of Early Childhood. What they're responsible for is tracking and communicating to the public the childhood options for people. So preschools, early childhood education centers, daycare centers, things like that. And they actually received a grant to improve the quality of that education. And one of the things that they wanted to do with that grant, the major thing, was to create a quality rating information system They wanted to develop their own system that was very customized to their use and their process. And so they decided to not buy an off-the-shelf system, but to create a custom system with Salesforce at the center and bringing together different systems that were around the organization, legacy databases that you're using, Oracle or Oracle databases that had information on ratings and licenses and the contact information from Salesforce. And then there's also a grant database that was actually something where they stored information on the money that they were providing to various child care centers to improve themselves. And so what they're looking to do is and this ties in with what Henri mentioned about tying together different systems, even getting automation to some extent here. What they're trying to do is basically tie all this information together so that it's a very much a feedback system for doling out money to various childhood centers, measuring the impact of that investment in the quality of the education that's provided, and then being able to present that quality information out to citizens so that they can make informed choices about childhood education centers that they may want to hire. So that's what Scribe allowed them to do. In terms of why they use Scribe, it's really significant. They had a very tight deadline where they needed to show progress in using the grant money that they had received, and so Scribe gave them the opportunity to meet that deadline and to deliver that value in a very short period of time, even though they had other integration tools available to them through the Department of Human Services. They elected to use Scribe because of that tight deadline, and that was recommended by Vertiva, the Scribe partner. Even more significantly, they wanted the Office of Early Childhood to take ownership for this system. So again, thinking about that integration lifecycle, who's going to maintain it? Who's going to change it? In this case, they wanted the Early Childhood Office to be self-sufficient, not have to go back to another arm of the government for aid whenever they needed to change things. Skill-wise, within the department, they had a business analyst who was taking ownership for this. So they needed a tool that was appropriate for them to take on and be able to work with. And so, again, Scribe was a great fit from that perspective. So you'll see the quote at the bottom of the slide here that says, Scribe iPaaS was so easy to use that I can remap fields in the interface, change or troubleshoot existing integrations and add new integrations, all without advanced Salesforce or database training. That comes from that owner, that business analyst that's within the department. So it really speaks to those advantages. As a result of using Scribe, they became self-sufficient, but they also had results from this service that affected the public. So it improved the ratings availability of information on ratings of those childhood offices. It made citizens more aware of what the ratings were, because it enhanced the data quality by tying together all these different systems where they were separate and disconnected prior to that. And they've actually seen a great increase in the number of people using the overall system to look into the quality of these various facilities. It's a great example of sort of tying together various systems of record to create something much greater than that, in this case, a quality rating system for the entire state. Another one that I think thought would be interesting to highlight is our recent work with Microsoft. And this ties into an analytics system. So Microsoft, as you may know, is the provider of Power BI, a visual, interactive analytic tool really designed around agility and giving business users the ability to look at their data and explore it in an interactive fashion. Some of the value of Power BI is that it promises to show all the data that you want to look at and to have it be up to date, basically in real time. And so Microsoft uses Scribe, elected to use Scribe for what they call solution templates. These solution templates were designed to give a brand new person who may be interested in Power BI the option to evaluate Power BI. And to do that, effectively, they really need to have Power BI connected to an actual data source, their real data source. So these solution templates include a pre-built dashboard within Power BI. They include Scribe that will connect to your CRM in this case, either Dynamics CRM or Salesforce. And Scribe takes the data out of those applications, puts it into a SQL database, and then makes it available for your Power BI dashboard. The real interesting thing about this use case is that it's an example of someone using the Scribe API to create basically an application that embeds integration into it for the purposes of making that integration a lot less messy for anybody who's using the application. So in this case, a business user can come up to the solution template website, say I want to try the solution template for Salesforce, which is a sales management dashboard that ties into Salesforce, and then fill out a web form. Again, the form interacts with Scribe on the back end. And so they fill in a web form with information about their Salesforce system, information about their SQL database. It can automatically provision a license to Scribe, and then within a couple of hours, they have a full dashboard with all their data pointing back to their real live data. So the value here is very, very great user experience that simplifies a lot of the issues that you may encounter if you're trying to piece this together yourself. And so they offer ready-to-use sales dashboards, a few hours to get to analytic insights, and it also improves the performance because Scribe is very much tuned into these kind of applications that are constantly being updated with data, in this case the CRM, and being able to pull out only the changed data, push it into the database so that the value of Power BI, where it's promising to show you all your data in real time and it's always fresh and up to date, Scribe makes that possible, that promise possible. So another good example, not an enterprise example, but it's kind of an interesting example of what is being done these days for integration and tying together various systems, ultimately getting into an analytics system using data integration and iPaaS. So before someone asks, Scribe Online provides great connectivity to all sorts of applications, or business applications like CRM, ERP systems, also marketing systems, service systems, collaboration systems, analytic systems. We provide connectors and that make it very fast for you to integrate those different systems. And so we also have, for developers, we have a connector development kit that if you had something unusual that for some reason we didn't support, you could always, in a fairly quick fashion, create a connector to something new that we don't support. So just one piece of background on Scribe itself. We've been in this business of data integration for 20 years. We are obviously grew up before cloud, so we handle both cloud and on-premise deployments just as equally and just as easily. And we have an extensive partner ecosystem, more than 1,200 partners that can adapt and create solutions on your behalf. And our technology is very much proven. So we have over 12,000 customers on both our on-premise and cloud-based platforms. And again, one of our claims to fame is this integration lifecycle management capabilities that allow you to not only create your integration in a very risk-free, fast fashion, but to also manage it on the long term and be able to adapt to all the things that come your way. We have really strong partnerships with technology providers that allow us to build these connectors. And I mentioned the SIs and partners that we work with. And we provide integration solutions as a result for all different industries across the globe. So we're going to take questions in just a second, but I did want to point you to a couple of additional resources that would be probably very helpful for you and very much in line with what we're talking about today. First is the Forrester Wave that Henri was an author for. If you go to the Scribe website, you can see on the homepage a very obvious banner at the top that allows you to download that particular report. And also there's a report that we published at Scribe, which delved into one of our customers that's using our iPaaS and the economic benefit as well as other benefits like competitiveness and things like that they got as a result of using the Scribe iPaaS. So it tries to quantify based on a real-world example how they overcame this connectivity hurdle that they had and the results that they achieved by using an iPaaS as their integration solution. So you can get that by going to our website again, scribesoft.com, and going to the resource library, and you should find this under the white paper section. But if you have trouble finding it for some reason, we're happy to provide a link. Just reach out to us when you have a chance. I just want to thank Henri for his participation today, as well as all the attendees. Again, thank you for attending. I hope you got a lot out of the session, and if there are additional questions that you haven't entered yet, please feel free to reach out to the organizers for this event. So thank you very much, everyone, and appreciate your time, and we'll see you at another ScribeSoft event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.